It get hotter in the summer, yeah. Hotter in the summer. The winter don't stand no chances. Hotter in the summer, yeah. Hotter in the summer. The winter don't stand no chances. Hotter in the summer.
Front and your back, be careful who you hug and you dab. Cause these niggas ain't your brother like that. Don't really love you like that. From the land of snakes, trying to be a great. Trusting everybody that I love, that was my mistake. Turn me cold-hearted to a savage. If you f me over, I ain't giving out passes. Doing big shit, we ain't doing nothing average. Hotter in the summer if you ask.
It get hotter in the summer, yeah. Hotter in the summer. The winter don't stand no chances. Hotter in the summer.
Went from wearing Chuck Taylor to Balenciaga. Sweaty think I'm rubbing on the genie bottom. Giving nada, saying nada, I'm just pushing product. I made my waves in the winter, now my summer hotter.
Better catch up.
Move too swift for all the lame shit. You asking for a favor, how I know we ain't the same, bitch. Watch how I in and out lane switch. They trying to earn cheese off a K, but they ain't Swiss.
The light looks nice, though. All right, let's get it started.
Been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product to put in my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete, 2 rows, stuck by the code. I'm trying to take it as high as it go. I've been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product to put in my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete, 2 rows, stuck by the code. Been by the code, you know how I be. Been by the code, you know how I be. Welcome to my world, this shit not no joke, I'm right at your throat. Hoping you taking the time to cope with me running my race, you not in my pace. These niggas act like I'm not goated, but already know I've been him on the low. I did it myself, I'm fond of the code. I don't need your hand, bitch, I'm good on my own. I'm painting my pain, all them thoughts even yours. I give her the pipe, she told me I'm generous, moving real diligent. Blue bands on me, earning my stripes, I say how I feel, I go where I grow. I bag up a fortune, it's all for the sport, I'm feeding my soul. Been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete, 2 rows, stuck by the code. I'm trying to take it as high as it go, I've been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete, 2 roses, don't get too close. Been by the code, you know how I be. Grew out the mud pit to a rose, don't get too close. Been by the code, you know how I be.
What's up?
What's going on? Am I coming in clear?
Yep.
Fantastic. Hmm. Am I muted? I don't.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, you hear me? Okay. I'm like, hold on. Maybe I was muted before. Maybe it's a late message.
Tech difficulty.
Yeah, it's part of the game. Part of the game.
Yeah.
What's going on your side, brother?
I'm doing all right, man. Can't complain.
Doing all
Oh,
right.
we can't. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can't. Yeah, yeah, we can't hear him. Ooh,
Oh. No, we can't hear
yeah,
you.
we can't hear you. You want us to leave and come back, or
Oh, yeah, let's see. Let's see.
Wait. There we go. There we go.
There
okay?
we go.
All right.
Okay. So wait, that whole entire time, did you guys hear the opening? Did you guys hear
Yeah,
you got all that?
yeah.
Okay, so
Wait,
you heard the intro and all that?
I just heard the music, not any talking.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
this is
okay.
it.
Yeah, I had an intro up for us. I kind of just walked through some of the points that I wanted to cover.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and just kind of reiterate it since it didn't get captured. I think it was my mic on my end, but
Okay.
basically, welcome to the channel. This is a space where we highlight the madness and the dysfunction, as you know, that takes place in our society. I believe, as you guys have listened to some of the clips, that the modern world in all of its glory has metastasized into this massive ball of cancer, and the condition is not stable. It is heavily critical. I was saying that today, on a micro level, the conversation is going to be centered around the Black community, or the African American community, or the BIPOC, whatever they're calling it these days. And my position is what is stated on the thumbnail, and that is that there is no Black community. And I welcome anybody to challenge me on that, to prove me wrong. So this is episode 2. You two were on episode 1, so thanks for coming back. I appreciate that. Episode 2, there is no Black community. And I also wanted just to clear up a few things. I'm not talking about community as is defined in the Webster's dictionary, or if you were to run a Google query on the word community, what that would bring back. I'm more focused on the holistic aspect of this word community from a general sense, such as, is there support? Is there love? Is there compassion? Is there respect and reverence for one another in this quote unquote Black community? And does the Black community take care of each other? Do they seek to uplift one another? Do they protect their members and revere their elders? Because I do remember a time, and I've had this conversation with my mom and my aunties, actually, the elders, ad nauseum. And I've always said, man, our community is in disarray. When did this happen? And the craziest thing is that my mother could never really pinpoint a time when this happened. It was always this sort of like, I don't know, things have just gotten out of whack. And I'm like, well, no, I'm trying to better understand like a key time frame of when this happened. So in this quote unquote Black community, right, do the children in these communities, who we all know are going to be the next competitive members in the larger society, are they getting what they need in order to be productive citizens? And my answer is the same thing that's stated on this thumbnail, and that's a resounding no. So I want somebody to prove me wrong. I want to hear from the righteous and the Black power, blackity blacks, that say they'll do anything for their people and they stand by their people. And then on the flip side, I always hear this, where we're not a homogenous group. Well, it seems like we become homogenous when somebody gets, deleted in the streets, and we all sort of come together like butt cheeks and we say, oh, we're one. But then, you know, there can be other conversations centered around this quote unquote black community where they say, well, we're not all the same. So I'm confused, right? So I know we got 4 people in here. Thank you for joining. Don't be shy. The discussion is open up to everybody who care to share. And like I said, but before we get into it, if you can please like the live and subscribe to the channel. And all I ask is that you be brutally honest. And my gratitude will be on high. And I appreciate the collaboration. Also, as you come in, let us know where you're tuning in from. So go ahead and put your city down in the comment section, your state or your turf, whatever you want. And if you don't care either way, then go ahead and type the letters in capital GFY, which again means go fuck yourself, and I'll understand, no hard feelings. And if you don't want to come up and join the panel, but you have a question, make sure that you start your question off with a capital letter Q and a colon so that it could be easily picked up amongst any comments that may come in. I would imagine this might be a short, small, intimate group, and that's perfectly fine. But again, anyone and everyone is welcome to come up and join the panel and share their sentiments as well. And if you're camera shy, that's okay. You don't have to show your face. So I'm just going to go. I've already posted the link up at the top of the chat. It's the very first comment. It says download Malfunction. If you click on that because you've decided that you want to come up and have the conversation as well, then what it'll do is it'll ask you to allow some permissions, which is your mic and your camera. And then you'll type your name or whatever name it is you want to use on this chat. And I'll go ahead. It'll put you in the green room for a second, and then I'll go ahead and beam you up from there. So I do have a few predetermined questions lined up. And at the same time, I'm hoping to just simply have a discussion as we work through this. I'll ask some questions, and you're free to ask some questions as well. I don't want this to be a monologue. I want us to just have some banter back and forth around this topic. And the goal is to drive some understanding, because as you know, once we achieve that understanding, the fact that, in my opinion, maybe not yours, that there is no black community, but once we understand that, then we can take steps to move forward, because it's at that point of realization and acceptance where we've satisfied the acknowledgement of the situation. And that is the only way that change becomes a potential. I do have a video that I want to show you. There's a lady who is on YouTube who does amazing work. Her name is This Bohemian Gyal. And she has the same questions around what it is and where is this black community. I urge you to visit her channel. She does reaction videos, and she also covers current events. She has a host of topics she talks about, but many of which are centered around this non-existent community as well. So she really puts a ton of good research and work, and that's why I think her content is rich. Her channel is also linked down in the description, so I've made that easily accessible for you as well. So we're going to go ahead and walk through some components of her video. Like I said, it's about 30 minutes long, but I just chopped it up and got pieces that I think are relevant to this topic. And we'll have a discussion around that. So, but what I think is really cool is that she is in alignment with how I see this. So, I mean, if we were just to open it up to you gentlemen who are here, and thank you for that. I do see that there's some other folks. You guys are all welcome to come up. Just go ahead and hit that top link, and we'll let you in. But the topic, Don, there is no black community. What do you think about that?
It's hard to argue against that premise, especially when you look at it just in a general, American kind of image, or maybe even just how it's portrayed, or the stereotypical image of the African American community, or just the black community in general. in one sense is like, is it just more of a projection? Is it more of a just what's being portrayed, that there in greater numbers there is more of a community that exists, but because of social media or different media kind of aspects, is that kind of, poison the water, if you will, for lack of a better term. But yeah, I mean, it brings a lot of questions. 'Cause, I mean, at the end of the day, initially it seems like the answer is just like, yeah, there is no community, So could that lead to us figuring out why? Sure, but I guess there could be another angle to look at it. As like, is there one, but isn't being suppressed? Is it just something that's not being shown of, or just kind of projected because it would go against the status quo of them, the days and those people, the people without faces is always them and they.
I got
But
you. I got you.
yeah. So that's I ain't gonna hold the mic too long.
Oh, you're good, man. You're good. All right, Qataris, what do you think about this?
So
Is
if you
there?
look at the black,
There is no black
oh
community. What do you think?
yeah, there's okay. I'll elaborate. So if you look at the black community like a building, right? You know, a building contract, right? Contractors come in, they build a building, right? They mismanage the money and the building gets halfway built. So you got like a structure rusting from the weather, you know, and then another company comes in, does the exact same thing. They're making money off of this building project that's going nowhere. That's the black community.
Wow.
It's we're collective. We're collective when we're suffering, but we're not collective when we're winning. And
Wow.
people will come into the black community, like you see it with BLM, things like that. They'll make their money, and then for excuse my French, they'll fuck off after that,
Yeah.
you know. And we're not we're not collectively winning because we're only focused on the losing aspect. And to go back to your point about when you were talking to your mother about when the black community was destroyed, you know, it started after the 60s. If you
Yeah.
look at the time period between the 60s and the 70s, white and black people were different, but they all kind of listened to the same music, all kind of dressed the same. All right.
Yeah.
You know, you had people like Jimi Hendrix. All right. You had things that everyone did. If you look at black leaders within the community back then, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, people that instead of preaching destruction, they preached, cooperation. They were killed. And then you get into the 80s and it gets worse. And then the 90s is when it was over.
So
That
so
that's
so
just my opinion.
the nineties for you is when the shit hit the fan. The bottom just fell out of it all, and what was once a black sort of collective community basically just shattered into pieces in the nineties. What do you think caused that? What was so unique about the nineties that obliterated this culture or this community?
I think it's remember what I said about people make their money off the black community. They have figured out a way to commodify the black experience to where it's like it's trendy, it's profitable, and like trendy and profitable things, kind of like if you look at like things like Sexy Red or Megan the Stallion, like you see girls of all demographics, popping their butts to it, listening to it, vibing to it, right? It makes money, it's profitable. It's the same thing, but it's kind of like getting high on your own supply. It's a caricature of the black community. It doesn't represent the black community. So then you get black people addicted to that as well. And for example, if you look at NWA back in the day when they very first started, and you have to focus on this because that's what people identify the black community with is music, you
Yeah.
know. And at one point, they were rapping about Jews. And I don't know if you remember that, but like in a few of their songs, they were rapping about Jews when MWA kind of broke apart. And they were like, oh, we're not having that. You can rap about, I shot this nigga, I got this nigga, I took this nigga's bitch. You can talk about all that. You can talk about killing niggas in the streets in droves. That's fine. But the moment you talk about something else, that's when they come for you.
Yeah,
And
it's the craziest thing you say that. I was listening to what's the guy's name? I think his name is Adam 12, and he was having a conversation with I can't think of the black dude's name, the African American's name, but the African American was telling him exactly. I mean, he was giving him the business. He was saying exactly what you're saying to Adam 12, who was a white, Jewish man, and he was saying
Hmm.
you've made millions of dollars off of the black community. And Adam 12 agreed. He goes, yeah, you're right. He goes, you've appropriated this culture and made all this money. He goes, everyone has made money off of us, but they hate these people, but they just want to extract the culture and discard the people. So maybe you can find it. It's all across social media, man. I think I saw it on TikTok. But it's interesting you said that about Sexy Red and popping her coochie all over the place because the Bohemian Gal. And I'm going to play a video here for you in a second. She said the same exact thing you said, Qataris. The 50s and the 60s look completely different. But before I show that video, I do have another question. Do you think, okay, if we were to look at, okay, we got slavery, we got Jim Crow and all that, but do you think that the black community was more together back here versus today? I'm not talking about the condition of servitude and slavery and this right here, but do you think they were more connected there, or is there a deeper connection in today's modern world? And I'll leave that question to Don.
100% more connected back then. Uh, it was a sense of community back then. So, well, kind of what we don't have now, but the community sense was there. Looking out for each other was more natural. There was still this kind of built-in camaraderie. There was that aspect of what my mom used to talk about. My mom was raised in the 50s, 60s, and she talks about back in the day, if you messed up outside when you were playing, the neighbor find you and they beat you, and somebody else come and beat you, and they tell your mom, and your mama beat you. Your dad get home, like they just ran the belt on you, like yo, you weren't allowed to step out, and nobody was mad. It wasn't like, oh, don't talk to my kid. Like they understood the concept of it takes a village. And it was also around the time where there wasn't so much mistrust, and not even just the black community, just in general, like the level of mistrust in just the America in general was just all time high. But just going back to African American side, it's like, yeah, it's like, dude, it was all kind of trust, man. You can leave your kids out, you do whatever, and it was like the times were so different. Also, you can just go back to the point during segregation, you didn't have nowhere to go. Like you couldn't run somewhere else. So it's like the white people ain't let you in, so you might as well make your bed real nice and comfortable where you were. So I mean, you kind of we had no choice but to stick together and stay in our circles and make sure we supported each other, because I mean, who else we had. But I mean, I won't go too far off on it, but I mean, once segregation kind of, the desegregation kind of took hold and people really wanted to stand out, it's like everybody just broke out. They
Yeah,
like, finally we can get with master. And I mean, it's like that, but everybody just kind of broke off, and it just kind of went a little wild after the whole desegregation movement. But at least that's the way I see it. So back then, definitely more connected, way more than now, for sure.
I got you. Qataris, what do you think? Same question to you. Were African Americans more of a cohesive group back here? I mean, I don't know when this image is. I would say probably pre-Civil War or very close to it, versus the quote unquote BIPOC or Black community in the modern world.
Well, to quote what Don said, we didn't really have much of a choice back then. And if you think about black people before civil rights, we were akin to like what you would see like Asian immigrants back during that time period, or Hispanic immigrants. Same thing. Like they had their communities, they had no choice but to work with each other and build. I feel as though with the black community, because we're different from everyone else, most other ethnicities, the powers that be, I'm not going to say specifically white people, but the powers that be feel most threatened by us for whatever reason. And when we got civil rights, they had to move the goalpost somehow. Any structure of your society, or any foundation of your society is going to be your women. All right, because the men don't do anything without the women.
Yeah,
So what they did was they separated the black man and the black woman. I mean, I'm pretty sure you grew up hearing it. I'm pretty sure Don's heard it growing up. Niggas ain't shit. You hear about it. It's repeated in songs, and the women repeat it ad nauseum, if not directly, indirectly. So then that wedge got driven between us, and it started in the 70s. It started in the 70s, and then it just progressed over the next couple of decades. It got worse. Men are your structure, women are your foundation. So if you remove the foundation, where's your structure going to stand?
Wow,
And that's how we ended up here.
I like that. Now, would is there any place to put more of the responsibility on? Okay, you're saying the women are the foundation and the men are the structure. Is
Yeah.
okay, so if the men aren't there, could the women still produce a quality next generation? And then vice versa, if the women isn't there, but the man is there, would the other individual be able to produce a wholesome, productive next generation? Or do you need them both?
I mean, ideally, you need them both, but if you look at single parent demographics, a single father is better than a single mother. I mean, it's shown time and time again that if you have a single dad, growing up, I've known black single dads, they'll work like two or three jobs. They'll do what they can. They'll discipline their kids. They tend to be more stricter. The kids mind better. Uh, Again, as I said, foundation. You're starting to even see that now with like the white community, how like white women now are like white men bad. Like we've been dealing with that for decades. You know what I mean? Like the foundation, if your foundation's shaky, you can't stand. And again, how do governments control men? You can't really control us in normal senses, but you can control the women and therefore control the men.
Yeah.
And
Is it
so, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
And so that's what happened. And it was very subtle. It took time. It was really slow. It was very subtle. And that's why, I mean, if you look at how things are now, like I said, I was living in Baltimore during the riots. And I mean, you see, they burn down their own neighborhoods. They like where's the Hotep Nation when this is happening? Where's the togetherness when this is happening? The looting, the burning,
Yeah.
having to go to a VA appointment in downtown Baltimore, driving past National Guard, people looking at you sideways.
Yeah. So, question. I still have this image up here. So, what was the catalyst from there, or meaning the past of what we're looking at up here to? Because I know you said that you can't really control the men. I would argue differently, and I think that policy and government structure did that very well in the '80s, when actually it was post Civil War when they start hauling these men off to jail for the simplest of things. And so the control was massive. I mean, if you put a person in a cage where they can't have any influence, they can't assist their community and provide for a community, then you essentially have ultimate control. Would you agree to that?
I definitely agree. I'm not saying that you can't control men. Like that's control through force of violence right there. But in modern times, back then, if you look at like the 70s, because it started in the 70s, the jailing, the beatings, things like that. Actually, it started sooner than that. But uh, as it progressed, once you have enough men removed from their families, things start to fall apart. And then when you try and reintegrate, well, you have one group already under control. You basically de facto have control of the other group.
I got you. Don, you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the breakdown kind of takes me back when I was looking over the Willie Lynch letters
Yeah.
back in the day. It just like the mindset and the breakdown is so similar from how they broke people during slavery to now. It's just amazing how it's like repackaged. Like if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it. They take your strongest men and they strip them and defile them in front of all the women. And they put this fear into them. These women raise these boys to be strong but mentally weak. Yeah, I mean, they don't chase and they don't pursue the knowledge. They don't pursue, to go to higher levels. You know what I mean? They just want to just be strong and just show they show their masculinity, and that's the only way they know how to do it is physically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So even though they're physically stronger, they're mentally weaker, easier to control. But the woman did that, and it's messed up because it's like using their nature against them. Their nature of wanting to care, their nature to want to protect theirs. Yeah, I mean, and it added this toxic aspect that actually, at the end of the day, brings down the community. So just looking at the way they pulled the men out of the homes and they threw them in jail. They murder them, things of that nature. And these women are seeing this and they raising these kids. And then the government put a little extra spice on it when they brought in the welfare and was like, hey, keep them out of the house. Yeah, I mean, keep them out
Yeah.
the house. It's like they really did use our women against us to a degree. And I look at like the whole, I know someone mentioned this before, like something about the feminist movement and overall, but how it seemed like it had a so much worse effect on black women than it is for their white counterparts. And it's crazy because a lot of the black women, I don't really know a lot of black women who self-proclaim themselves to be feminists, but the ideology seems to be on a really strong, extremist side of feminism, even if they don't hold or carry the title. And it's so interesting, especially when I look at some of the colleges. Someone had this video one time, and they had all these white girls in college, and all of them were at their graduation flashing their rings. They're all flashing their wedding ring. All of them were engaged or married already. And like we keep hearing about all these black women who got bachelors and masters and PhDs and not a man in sight. It's like, what is the mindset? What's the concept? Like, why did these women they got the degree, they got the education, but they still understand the structure. They still understand that they want to be under the cover of a man. They still want to have a family. They understand the value in that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But our women are just like, we don't need you at all. Like this white woman, she got her degree. She probably got family support. She can live without her man too, but she's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and it's not. And don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to throw the ball all on the black woman. I'm just bringing out an aspect of this how the decay of the community came to. We got to this point where we believe there is no black community. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Appreciate
And
that.
I agree. I agree with what he's saying in terms of feminism. I look at it as the useful idiot syndrome. Because I mean, we as black people, let's face it, like it feels good to be seen and heard, like because you're not heard for so long. Like I said, we have to wear this mental armor, especially when we move out of a black, well, actually, even in a black space, you have to wear armor because, I mean, I'm pretty sure both of you could agree at some point you've had another black person say you black dark nigga, I'm pretty sure you had somebody maybe a few shades lighter than you say that to you and you look, you're like, well, they'll call you a nigga too when they're mad at you. Like, why are you saying that to me? I'm pretty sure, and because a lot of black people will say that don't happen. It does.
Yes, it
It
does.
does.
It does. Yeah. I heard it. I heard it growing up, man. I heard it growing
And and
up.
and black women, they kind of become the useful idiot because, as I said before, people make money or they gain something from the black community. So the white woman will come in and be like, sexism, racism, patriarchy, right? They'll toss that in there,
Yeah.
and the only thing that does is puts a target on us. Because then I've even talked to some white people and they're like, yeah, uh, now everything's multiracial and this and that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, y'all are replacing us. I'm like, white women make babies with white men more than black men. Like, what are you on? You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not seeing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a useful idiot thing. It's as Don pointed out, the women will be married, they'll get theirs, and then the black women will be left holding the bag. Like what are we doing?
No, hey, completely understand that. I mean, there's a couple things said here that I've noted. We talked about, the welfare system. We talked about government policy. We talked about the separation between the sexes and sort of the disdain for the men, and so would you say that a lot of these elements has what's led us to um, this there not being a black community. It has been heavily eroded because of these little small things that have happened over the decades that, it's not something that's just right in your face. It's a gradual thing. It's like, what is that? If you put a frog in a pot and you turn the heat up slowly, it doesn't realize that it's being cooked. Am I saying this right? Or is it like a lizard? It's one
Yep.
of those little
No.
rodents.
Yeah. You got it
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. You don't really know what's happening. So it wasn't like we woke up one day and, they've changed policy and all this stuff changed. It's very, very small, gradual, where we didn't necessarily, people, this community, quote unquote, didn't necessarily see it coming. So would you say that sort of that's what happened?
Yeah, and the thing is, remember the last episode I said it's branding.
Yeah.
With American Black specifically, like I said, we're when we're losing, we're a group. When we're winning, it's just us, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it's branding. So like you can go anywhere in the world and someone, like I said, I've been in Korea and like I said, people ask me, why do you speak like a normal person? You know, you have this branding that you can't outrun. And it's the social engineering has been done so well that you really can't get away from it. Like there's certain places, like out here in Guam, it's not so bad, but other places you're going to run into the same thing. People are going to have a view of you. And to give you an example of like a group that puts themselves in places, right? And this is going to sound crazy. Mormons. There are a lot of Mormons in the military. Lots of them, more than you would think, and they do it on purpose.
Wait, shout out to
You know,
Travis. He said we had it right. It's a frog. Appreciate that, Travis. I yeah, I don't know. I know I've heard I've heard it before, but I can never remember whether or not it was a frog or if it was like a lizard or something like that. But it's a slow burn. You don't know before you know
slow
you're
cook.
toast. Yeah. Appreciate
Yep,
that,
slow
Travis. Shout
cook.
out to you. Thank you.
But you just have certain groups that'll put themselves in places and they'll hold their pieces of power. With us, it's just we hold on to suffering, but nothing else. It's like the way forward is okay, we know what the problem is, and we know that if we work together, things could get better.
Yeah.
But the social engineering keeps us from one working together and two, like other people viewing us as we are. For example, one of your episodes you talked about moving to a place and they were like they insisted you have to have a certain credit score and you're like I got that, but the assumption just from looking at you is like, oh yeah, this guy doesn't got it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna I'm gonna say something that might be a little emotional, and looks like we don't have any of the hoteps in the chat just yet. But looking at this image here, um, I would say that the people we're looking at, I mean, I see potentially Beyonce, Sexy Red. I see, um, I think that what I'm looking at here is the same people that are living in today's world, just with the Jordans and, the little bit of drip here. But I think what it is the same mindset. I think the black people in the modern world is still living under this mental capacity right here. And if I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, but I think when you think about trauma or anyone who has seen something so horrific, there should always be some intervention. You got to sit people down and say, hey, you don't think that you got some problems, but you just saw, 20 people get deleted. You got some issues, even though you're walking around here like there isn't any and you got a smile on your face. We probably need to have a conversation with you to help you work out of some of these dark spots or dark corners that you can't see. So, I mean, that's why I say when you were talking about this term community, I think there has to be a steady foundation when it relates to the mental space, because you got to have people to be able to spread the positive message to the community and to be able to uplift those coming behind them. And that's all a mindset, right? If you walk around here and you're depressed and you're sour and you're sappy and you happen to be around a lot of young folks, then you're actually doing more harm than you are good. That's my take on that. But what I wanted to do is go back to what you said earlier, Qataris, about the 50s and the 60s and the change that happened or the potential change that happened back then. So I got this video, like I said, from this Bohemian gal. And I definitely think you guys should check out our channel. Those that are in the chat, if you can just like the video, if you'd like to come up and share your thoughts on the topic, the link at the very, very top says download Malfunction. You can go ahead and hit that link and I can bring you up and you can be a part of the discussion as well. But I'm going to play this video by her, and it basically brings us, well, it poses a massive question on what happened. So take a look at this.
How did we go from this to this? From polished and dignified to sagging pants and bonnets? From songs about upliftment and empowerment to songs about lasciviousness and degeneracy, and this, and this. From spending time with our kids to, as the years go by, we're seeing a greater devolution of Black culture, propped up by communities and politicians determined to sit back and watch the destruction of Black communities. One thing is for certain: times have changed.
System malfunction.
You guys agree? I think that spoke to your point, Qataris. Don, you got anything to add on that? How do we go from the 50s and the 60s to the madness we see today?
I mean, it's one of them things where you can look at it as just a natural progression, and just, over time, the erosion of, this families and in the community led to this. Or you can look at it as possibly being a systematic attack from multiple angles to kind of accomplish a certain, task or mission. I don't know which one would be more accurate.
Yeah.
Maybe I do. But it's just, I don't know. It's so much coincidence, when you look at it. It's just like, oh, well, that happened to happen, that happened, and had this happen, and so and that's why we're here. And it's just like no one saw the downhill. Like no one saw where this was going. Like we have too many smart people in this country. We have too many high-end psychologists that are hired under the U.S. government. Not saying the U.S. government's necessarily behind it, but if I was to point some fingers, I mean, it's just like there was a goal, there was a target, and I feel like it's more of a mission accomplished more than it was just a natural decline because we were brown skinned. If that makes sense.
I got you. Okay, cool. Qataris?
So before I say this, shout out to the Native Americans that are in chat.
Yeah.
But you see this, we have to take a step back and look at this on a macro scale, because this all happened together with everybody else. Like for example, if you look at Native Americans, they got the same treatment. They got the reses, substance abuse, broken homes too. Like they suffer. Like growing up where I lived before I joined the army, I was cool with a lot of Native Americans because we had the exact same problems. Like same thing, crimes, murders, like you hurt the people that you're around more, so
Yeah.
same things on the res, it's violent too. Certain people that were white adjacent could adapt and change and become a part of the whole, but the people that were like obvious, just like you're not white adjacent, like they got brutalized. You saw it with people from Guam, you saw it with Hawaiians, I mean, you're still seeing that kind of now, but it's like it's a systematic thing to hold on to power, because you think about it, you have to move the goalposts. If you look at how things were back then, you had people that thought America was going to be one way for forever. And then when they saw the changes, they were like, okay, we can't let these people work together. For example, going back to the Civil War, before that, there was actually a slave revolt where a bunch of slaves ran off with Native Americans, and they were fighting against the government and winning. And they wouldn't put it in the newspaper because they're like, if we do this, all of the slaves will rebel. They'll run off and join the Native Americans, and we'll have an even bigger problem on our hands.
Yeah.
So I feel like they do just enough to keep all of the other, and I'm using this tongue in cheek, lesser races at each other's throats. So we don't come together and be like, hey, Oh, this happened to you? Oh, same thing. Same thing happened to me. And then we all look, side eye the person in the room that's responsible for it. You're
Yeah,
just
man.
not going to see that.
Okay. Is there an ideal, like if we were looking for like an example of the ideal community, and like I said earlier, those communities that would uplift each other, that show reverence to their elders, that support each other, that have respect. If we were to look at the different ethnical backgrounds here in the U.S., is there an ideal community that should represent the standard?
It depends on what generation that community is because social media and everything has made the world a lot smaller place. It used to be Asians, I would say before it used to be Asians, but you're seeing that with like second, third gen, like they're not like that anymore.
Yeah, I see. Don?
Hard to call. That one's hard to call. I knew for a time. I knew I was in a Jewish community for a while.
Yeah,
I mean, they was pretty solid. Just and what made the Jewish community I lived in so unique is just they locked it down. I
yeah,
mean, like a lot of you know nationalities do when they move places. When you go to the Chinatown is here, Asian town, or little Italy, whatever. One of them, all them little kind of spots. And when I was in this community, I mean, they had their stores were Jewish. I mean, they had their synagogues. I remember going in the subway and they was like, "Oh, we don't have ham here, and we don't sell ham in this one." I mean, it's like no pork products in this subway. I mean, everything in this area was for them, by them. The money was going back to them. So it was just like I was like, I mean, seemed like a pretty solid kind of community. Like,
that's
wow, like
genius.
okay.
That's genius.
I mean,
Now, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, please, I'm good. I'm
No, I was
good.
gonna say, how is it that what is holding Black people back from doing this, right? Because like the picture I showed earlier, I think it's a mindset. Like there's this victim mentality that just it festers in the DNA of Black people to where they can't say, you know what, we recognize the historical harms that were done and they were brutal, right? The most brutal harm, chattel slavery, the world over. But how is it that the elders or even those that we consider educated don't really see this and try to affect change? Why isn't that happening? Because, if you think about a lot of other, if I would say marginalized groups who come to the US, somehow they tend to come together, man. They'll sleep in the same apartment, 4 or 5 families, so that they can build over time. And it seems like you get Black folks together and there's going to be somebody getting shanked. Somebody's going to get, choked out. They can't just get along. There's a lot of envy. There's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of, innuendo and character assassination. What is the problem with this? What is happening here?
You know what's interesting about that because I've encountered black people abroad, right? And you have two types. You have and I don't know if you've experienced this when you're somewhere. I call it the black guy nod. When you walk past another black person, you make eye contact and you nod.
Always.
Normally, if you were stateside, you wouldn't pay each other any mind. But it's kind of like you look, I'm black, you black, and you nod. I've done this with Africans. I've done this with other nationalities of black people, but it's still fragmented. Like when I've talked to an African person, because like I found out I have like Nigerian DNA, right? So I was talking to somebody from Nigeria, and I was like, oh, I'd like to learn the language of our people, and they're like, our people, and they kind of give me this look like, nigga, who is you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, fuck me then, fuck me then for wanting to learn. Okay,
Yeah.
I guess we're not the same. Which
Yeah.
is funny because if you go somewhere, like say for instance you're in Asia, people assume you're African.
Yeah.
Like they can't tell the difference, even though we look different, we smell different, we sound different. They don't care. We're all the same. And
Yeah.
as you said, to go back to your point, it's like we need to start thinking that way. We need to start saying, I'm no different from this person. Dark skin, light skin, doesn't matter. Like I said, we have people in our own community that will be like, yeah, dot nigga, get out of here, you black ass.
Yeah.
Like
Just
we're on
respect
the
for each
same
other.
team.
Yeah, it seems like
Yeah.
there's just no respect for one another, right? It's almost like
Hmm.
we look at ourselves as enemies. Like even though it's the same reflection in the mirror for the most part, there's variations, but there is some shared experience. There's some shared history because I can go to the middle of the country. I can go to the East Coast, right? I'm not talking about African because the Africans do see African Americans completely different.
Exactly.
They see us as we're not putting it together properly over here in their minds, for lack of a better phrase. But I can go to the middle of the country, any place, come across somebody else who's black, and like you said, there's the nod, there's the affirmation. You see him in the neighborhood, or you see him walking through the streets, and hey, I see you. But I mean, we've all eaten some pork chops, some pork back, and some hot water cornbread. We do share that experience, right? We do kind of share those cultural things, but on a larger scale, there just doesn't seem to be any cohesion amongst these people. Like, I see you, and I want to make sure you're good. Like if you need something, for example, you think about a lot of these athletes, right? And there's tons of them out there. I always wonder, what are these guys doing with their money? I mean, a lot of these kids come from economically deprived environments. They, they get to go to these big D1 schools or these big Ivy League schools because of their physical prowess. And then they get out and, I don't see that they represent themselves as gentlemen. There was only one dude in history that I remember, Michael Jordan. Every time he got on camera, the dude always had a suit on. He spoke properly. He just had a way with the cameras, and you had respect for him. In today's world, man, these dudes are coming out with tattoos on their necks. You got to go to a big school, man, and I don't even see that you speak proper English. How did you come out of Duke University or Yale? Because you got a full ride, because you're just a beast of an individual, and you come out, don't even speak the language properly. Boggles my mind. But what I'm saying is that it doesn't seem like these people, once they get to the top and make all this money, they don't turn around and compassionately say, hey, I came from this neighborhood. I need to go back here and drive some mentorship programs because there's some help needed. It seems like they make their money, they're gone, out of there.
So it's two ways if you think about it, right? Because you also see this with rappers, with a lot of black people revere these, these rappers that aren't even living the life that they rap about anymore. But it's two things because I remember, like I said, when I was living in Maryland, there was a guy that came back to the neighborhood, and he was just a regular guy. He made good money, came back to the neighborhood, and he disappeared. They found his car, and then later on, they found his skeleton. So it's like, we know as black people that if you get something and you're in the hood, somebody's gonna take it from you
Yeah,
and probably take you with it. So you
yeah,
gotta leave. So again, it's one of those, it's like a hole in the bucket kind of thing. It's like you don't want the brain drain, you want people to come back, but then those very same people will do something to you. And we all know this. It's like we all know that we're collectively judged. So you have certain groups of people, as I said in one of the comments to your videos, I said you have people that don the armor and do the best they can. Guys like us, where we're like, hey, I'm working corporate or I'm working federal, I'm doing my little job here. I'm not causing any trouble. Yeah, people have a certain view of me just because of the way I look. Cool, but I'm going to keep at it. Then you have those that become the beast and they're just going to be that type of person. I give you a few examples. uh, when I was in the army, we had a new guy. Now, the type of job I did in the army, there weren't too many black people, right? So we had a new guy, and I'll never forget. They came to talk to me like, "You need to talk to the new guy," and I'm like, "Why?" Well, he's up at the company area. He's blasting his music really loud. You need to talk to him. So now I see this dude. It's another black dude. So I pull him aside. I'm like, "Hey, come here." And I outrank him. So I'm like, "Look, you come here acting like a nigga, they're gonna treat you like one." Like,
yeah,
I feel like the younger generation now forgets how bad things really were, and maybe parents, aren't telling them, hey, there's a certain way you have to carry yourself. Another story after that, I'm on the train going to Seoul. It's like 10 p.m., right? And around that time, everybody's quiet on the train. I'm sitting minding my own business, not bothering anybody. Group of black people get on the train. They're talking loud, shucking and jiving. Normally, whatever, it's no big deal. But then all of the Koreans are looking at me because I'm just minding my own business. And it's like, shit, all right. So I get up and I'm telling them, I'm like, hey, guys, keep it down. Like, and I know they're not gonna give me any hard time, but I'm like, keep it down. I'm like, oh my bad. I'm like, you should know this. Like,
Yeah,
As a black person, you have to think about what you do, where you go, how you carry yourself. It's all about branding. And it's going to take all of us doing the right thing. And how do you get the people that are addicted to doing the wrong thing to do the right thing? That's the question.
I got you.
The
Don, I think you had
level of
something.
a oh sorry.
I think you had something, Don. Go ahead.
No, I mean to that point, the level of awareness in the in the youth is zero to none these days. They lack awareness, and it's because no one has really taught them or brought them up to speed. It reminds me of a conversation I had with one of my brothers I used to work with, and he was talking about how he has a son, and him and his wife, they had got divorced. They had a son, and his wife was Italian. He's a black dude, matter of fact, Caribbean island cat, and how he was trying to have these conversations with his son. His son is half black. He's like, hey, son, you need to, when you do certain things, you need to move a certain way. You need to do this, do that. And the son will buck against that because he's living in a more culturally diverse area. He has a lot of white friends and other diversity of friends. So they just like, hey, I see myself as everybody else, which in a perfect world that's the way it should be, right? And it's like, but the way I look at it is, I always said this. I was like, no, I like work towards the world you want to be in, but live in the world that you're in. Yeah, I mean, it's
I
like
got
you
you.
gotta live in the world you're in. I mean, and that's kind of like what he's trying. He was trying to put that to his son. His son's like, he didn't want to hear that. And the son told his mom. His mom was like, "Don't be telling my son about all that stuff." Nah, 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 nah. Now, of course, this is coming from Italian woman, white woman, and obviously she don't understand that aspect. It's just her kid, her son, and she don't want his mind polluted with all that thing. And some people believe it's like, oh, if you don't talk about it, it just disappear. I wish that was the case.
Yeah,
I was like, it's like the way we move is, I mean, it's so important because everything is amplified. Like it's something about melanin that amplifies everything you do. It's like maybe because we're like we can be seen more. I don't know. They just stand out. You know what I mean, I don't know what it is, but is this aspect. It's like you have to be mindful where you are, what you're doing, even more than the average, which is unfortunate because it shouldn't be that way. Like I said, that was one of my aspects when I was traveling. I felt like that wasn't as heavy as a burden when I was traveling time. I didn't have to be as conscious, but I never lost consciousness of it. But it just kind of felt nice for the load and the stress level to be lower. I
yeah,
guess,
yeah.
but yeah, so that's a whole day that's kind of crossed my mind.
Well, shout out to Jumpa. I mean, I think he basically summarized in 5 words what you're talking about: compromising your own skin for the most part, right? It's
Exactly.
now. Hey, I think that's a perfect segue to my next question, and that is, what is the perception outside of this quote unquote black community? Like, how do other communities perceive blacks and the black community?
You
Thanks
talking
for that
about from the
comment,
West
Jumpa.
side,
Appreciate that.
like on a world scale, or just kind of this in the states?
No, let's just so that we're not expanding it too far to try and make it simple. Just the states. How does everyone else see black people?
Dude, I think so. I think the media has destroyed that. Like that's a wrap. Like the way they see African Americans really seem to be more based on the stereotypical projection for the most part. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I see. I mean, I even when I was in the military, I know there was literally like white people that I would meet that never met a black person before in real life. They never. I didn't think that was a thing. I thought everybody had black people in their community, or some, at least somebody. Had one.
Yeah,
Like no, like literally. Like they never met a black person in life. All they knew was what they saw back in that time, BT, TV. Social media wasn't pop. I think I probably around about the MySpace time. So MySpace didn't really do us 230, but they got a
yeah.
little crazy around Facebook era. But
All right. Before you
all
say
that
anything,
being said,
Qataris, I do have just a follow up to that. Now, I know you
yeah,
said that it's the media and how they they paint the picture, but could we? I mean, would you concede that it's the black individuals within those communities that actually uplift the potential for people to, because if it's not being seen, then the media doesn't have anything to report. But if and I know, like, I'm trying to be the devil's advocate here. What I'm
of
saying
course.
is that, like, is the black community at fault for the reasons they're perceived so negatively to other communities or the outside world?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
hmm
Okay, Kataris, you
It,
mind expounding on
it,
that?
it's kind of like this. Going back before I said we share collective judgment. If you look at the news, and I'm pretty sure both of you have seen this, where you hear about a horrible thing that's happened, right? And what's your first thought when you hear about this horrible thing? Like, oh, this girl got raped. You're like, I hope he isn't black.
Yeah.
Or a guy shot up a place. You're like, I hope he isn't black. And then when you see that it's a black person, you're like, oh, well, now everybody's going to be looking at me funny. You know, your days are about to get harder simply because this person maybe did, like a town away, did something horrible, you know, and you're aware of it. And the thing is you have groups of people within our own community, and this is what weakens us as a community, because if you look at some of the other communities, they're harder, they're least likely to fall victim because they have cohesion. We have no cohesion, so it's kind of like being in jail, right? If you have nobody to roll with and you're just in jail by yourself, people are going to take advantage of you. People are going to do things to you. Black, white, doesn't matter. You're floating out there by yourself. But, you know, other groups, they band together and you can't really mess with them like that. They have some sort of identity, some sort of pride that they can stand behind. But with us, like you said before, just talking about generic black people, I'm talking about like you don't have a language, you don't know your family history, you can't trace your family roots back. I honestly feel that is one of the reasons why we lack the cohesion, going back to your point before. Because, like, for example, I speak Korean. So if I go somewhere and I encounter a Korean, I start speaking to them in Korean, it changes their whole outlook on how they treat me.
Yeah, for sure.
And you see it with Africans as well. Like they speak African, like whatever it is, they speak the same language or whatever. You'll see them work together. I remember seeing it in basic training. Like the regular black people had a hard time with each other and everybody, but the Africans were like, "I'm just here to do my program. I'm here to do what I got to do."
I got
And I feel like that's what keeps us vulnerable. We haven't figured out a way to give ourselves an identity that's not destructive. So everyone outside of that views us as, what baby mama makers, which is not true. Like black men actually, out of all like the male groups, they tend to be some of the best fathers. But we have that vocal minority, the Pookies and Ray Rays, that make all these children, or basically our foundation is messed up. The women pick these bad men to make kids with, and that's where you see that problem.
you. I got you, Don.
to one aspect, to your point, that kind of spoke on, like you kind of mentioned even before when you were talking about the Native American aspect, right? It's just culture, because throughout time, like I mean, we talk about African Americans, we can go back to slavery, things of that nature, but as we know, slavery's been around forever, right? Even before America.
Yeah,
With that being the case, there's other cultures and races that were put into slavery, and they've been able to return back to their cult, back to their lands, back to what they know, because I guess they weren't stripped of their culture. They
yeah,
still knew who they were. They still knew their language. They still knew their home tongue, their motherland. None of that was like taken from them. So how much of that cultural aspect is what kind of make these other groups, be able to rebound or be able to bounce back from such, turmoil as like something like the slavery could bring, or brought, if you will. So I always kind of think of that, because even now we just what's the how that saying goes, if you don't believe in something, you fall for everything.
yeah,
Like we're people without anything. We don't have anything, so we fall for everything. Like at least I mean in the totality. For it's just anything that comes, any new movement, any new song, any new things. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's just hop on that.
yeah,
Where these other cultures, they have something to stand on. They have principles to stand on. They got elders. They got word of mouth. They got book. They got things that they pride themselves and build themselves on. That's up their baseline. And because we lack that, we just kind of sway with the wind of the moment. It seems. It seems to me, obviously, it's anecdotal. I don't have legit
But
proof of that,
culture's
but
the glue. Culture's the glue that
yeah. I
holds
remember.
the
culture's
community
definitely
together.
definitely Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I say. That's what it seemed like.
I remember reading something to that effect where they were saying, Japan went through, all the bombing. What was it? Nagasaki, Hiroshima, like devastated these people, killed, deleted, you know, a lot of these people. But I remember what I was reading said that the reason why they bounced back so strong and came back like glue is because they had their culture and their traditions and customs to call on, and their ancestors, and because they knew who they were. So I think I agree with your point there that once you can't make a connection to your lineage, then you basically are just kind of floating in the wind, lost like a butterfly. You just, wherever the gust blows, you go, because you don't have a foundation to call back on to say, hey, no, you know what, I am a special person. I am, I do come from a line of people who were warriors or who were, respectable people. So I think that, so this, there not being a black community, I think it stands, right? I think that this thumbnail here is valid. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and show you another video. And it's also another video that's by the lovely This Bohemian Gal. And it kind of goes back into the 50s, but she just moves it along a little more. So check this out here. But wait a second. Looks like we got 7 people. I've seen it go up to 9. And no hoteps have come in here to argue this point. Right? They don't want to come in here and bring the smoke, so that's okay. There's no Curtises out there. The last time there was a Curtis, black folks this, black folks that. But I got something for you, Curtis.
What the hell we got going on here, Curtis? You going somewhere, Scotty? Oh, don't you go on somewhere, Scotty? Me, I told your dingy, used toilet paper looking ass, I ain't want you standing up here, and here you are, yet again. But I can stand here. Wait, hold on. Is that extra lip you giving me? Man, I'll slap your whiskers off into that litter box back there.
All right, so I'm going to play this video by This Bohemian Gal, and it's going to just continue the conversation here.
When you look back at men and women in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s, I think there was just something so elegant about the way that we carried ourselves. Even though a lot of black people were not rich, they didn't have a substantial means, they didn't have the finest threads. You just look at the way that they dressed, you could tell that there was a great deal of pride in the way they looked. They wanted to show people that, hey, we are elegant people, we are decent people. Even when you look in the 70s and you saw those men and those women with their big afros, there was such a huge sense of pride in the way that they looked. And you could tell by the way they walked down the street that they wanted to look fresh, they wanted to look clean. So we've always been interested in looking nice as a people. Today, the landscape is completely unrecognizable. I see black women going outside with bonnets on. They not just to the food store either. I'm talking about government buildings and offices. They're wearing these bonnets, pajamas, just attire that really should be left at home. Men are walking around with sagging pants or wife beaters. It looks like some of them just rolled out of bed. But these are the things that we do, and what always bothers me is that we always have someone who will justify that type of behavior. They think there's nothing wrong with it.
System malfunction.
Any pushback to that? Do you agree with what This Bohemian Gal says, or is she in left field?
No, I mean it goes back to the whole
right.
self-awareness thing. Like it, and that's why I say around like the 80s and 90s is when you really saw the change. Like if you look at black women in the 80s, they would still straighten their hair, but it would be their hair. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you had the S curls, you had
Yeah.
the Jerry curls, you had the perms, you had all of that, and then all of a sudden, like the 90s hits. Oh, and also back then, black women were a lot more slimmer. Like, you look now and it's like, wig hats, bonnets, and obesity.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. I remember the S curl was $6.99 at the local beauty shop. You let it sit there for about maybe 25, 30 minutes. You got the fresh little curls.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So
And, you guys probably remember the Jerry curls with the stay soft.
Yep.
My uncles. I even had a Jerry curl with the stay soft. Oh man, just dripping, shiny wet. I mean,
Yep.
but and I remember my grandmother would have the thick plastic like liner on her couch so that you didn't leave a stay soft print from your Jerry curl on her couch.
Mm.
But the overarching point is that people tried to take care of themselves. Like they put a little bit more into it than what we see today. I mean, I see some of these kids, this is new hairstyle. And I understand fads, they come and go, right? But they got this like, sort of afro braids type of thing going on. Or like I said, tattoos on their neck, like highly visible, like just grotesque tattoos. Whenever I see that, I automatically tell myself, you are eliminated from the job market. You don't even know how hard it's going to be for you to get a job. But I think that if we were, or black people carried themselves the way they did it in the 50s and 60s with that respect, and that pride, I think that the those who are looking into black people would view us differently. Just like you said, Qataris, when you go to Korea, right? Upon sight, initially, you're just another black dude, and there may be some uncomfortness for those folks. But the moment you start speaking their language, they relax. The guards come down, right? They're sort of open to you. And so it's all about your presentation and what you do on your end to make sure you're perceived in a positive light. Would you agree with me on that?
I agree. And also another thing to note about the fracture within our skeleton of a black community is those type of people that you described, like the people in the 50s and the 60s, they're seen as corny now. They're corny. You're corny. You're lame.
Yeah.
You work a normal job. You work a 9 to 5. You dress in a dapper suit. Like, you're not out here thugging. You don't have tattoos all over you. And again, this goes back to foundation. A lot of our women don't want those type of men until you know they get older and Pookie and Ray Ray's done with them.
Yeah.
You know,
Craziest thing is that, like, I remember growing up because I was born in the 70s, the mid 70s. And what I heard from, parents who had girls, or, girls that I liked back in the 80s when I was young, I always heard that you should find a man who's respectable and hardworking. But what the girls chase after today is the complete opposite. It's a complete different dynamic than what I heard growing up. Now it's the dude who's cool, doesn't go to school, he has an attitude, right? He just that sort of bad boy thing, which once again, back to the topic, it degrades this community. Anything down on that? Well, can we move on?
I mean, no, not much more to add. Like I said, I mean, my whole thing is this: I Team Bonnet just blows me. I hate that. I hate that. I hate those bonnets so much, man. It's just like I mean, there's no shots, not shooting shots, my lady. So I'm just saying this. It's for people who have like so little hair. It's just like they always wearing bonnets, and it always blows me. No offense, I swear. Like no offense. It's just like what are you wearing the bonnet? Like it's almost just a fashion statement now. It used to be like, oh, you got your hair, you want to keep it. But now sometimes you have like the weaves and the long braids. So I get it. But it's just always just like they just love those things. And it's like honestly, it's no reason to knock it. I get why it's there, but when you walk out the house, it's like, come on. Yeah. Come on. It's like, dude, you kill me. It's like, I mean, I don't know. I just, even when I'm just going to the store, even when I go to the funny mailbox, I put something decent on. I don't even like going out into my mailbox in pajamas,
Gotcha,
let alone to like a legit place. Yeah. I mean, people be in Walmart just looking ridiculous. It's like I rolled out of bed and just walked into Walmart, like half hanging on slippers, and I mean, like, man, like you didn't brush your teeth or nothing. But yeah, I mean, that's not just that ain't just the black, that's just across the board. But yeah, that's what come to mind. But yeah, we can move on. We can move on.
To add to that real quick,
please.
We see this thing about cultural appropriation, right?
Yeah.
Like, like some people tripping because a white person or a person that's not black has dreadlocks. Anytime I see anybody with dreadlocks, I compliment them because it takes work. I've had dreadlocks.
Yeah.
It takes work to have really nice ones, right? Especially if you got like straight hair, it's even harder. But, you hear people complain about that, like within the black community, but these are the same people, especially the women that wear Asian women's hair.
Yeah.
Like that's not your hair, but you're gonna be mad at somebody for doing their hair naturally. Like I don't get it. Like we want to be understood and we want to be heard. We have to let people in.
Yeah, you know, it's
It
crazy
is
about
what it
crazy.
is.
No, I agree with you. And crazy about that is that like people are different. People are different. Like a person from Norway is not going to look like somebody from Senegal, right? Or a person from Senegal is not going to look like someone from Tibet. But the modern what I'm seeing, especially in the even younger girls, but the modern black woman, you are trying to look like someone who wears hair in Tibet, like that. But you're unique in who you are. It's like if you look at like two different dogs, look like a what is it, a Malinois, like a Malinois, and you look like a curly hair poodle. Why would you go take the Malinois that has straight like German Shepherd hair and try and make it curly, and then vice versa? It's two different dogs. So, and they're beautiful in their own ways. But yeah, I think that's another degrading aspect of the community, because what it does is it disperses a larger message into how the women, and as you said, are the foundation, feel about themselves, right? And we're going to have a conversation around that, because as you know, and those who don't know, on Wednesdays I release videos called The Wig Hat Hunter. So it's download Malfunction, the Wig Hat Hunter, where I basically pull on a lot of this delusion and a lot of this dysfunction of women, putting these wigs on their heads, and the amount of money they spend, and the glues and the adhesive that they have to use to get this stuff done, and the you know the uplifting energy they get once they have this stuff on, and then when they don't have it on, the mood's completely different. So there's definitely some internal insecurities that need to be worked out. But so don't miss Wig Hat Wednesdays. Sometimes I do release a video on Thursday, just depending on what I got going on for the week. But I did want to thank everybody who's in the live. Appreciate the collaboration from Jumpa, Charlotte Reed, Travis, um, and those who haven't subscribed. If you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel, I will appreciate that. And I'm going to go ahead and move on, if you guys didn't have anything else on that last topic, to another video by, go ahead.
This one last note, and I'm going to drop it. We talk about cultural appropriation. I recently saw a picture of Beyonce lately, and she's wearing blonde hair, and her skin looks at least about 5-10 shades lighter than it used to be. And I'm sitting there like, wow. I was like, we talk, but to your point, if some white dude had dreads, everybody be going crazy. I'm saying like, yo, her skin is hella light, and she got straight blonde hair. I'm like, no, what? It's just funny, the contradiction.
I mean, you think that's crazy? Look at what happened to Lil Kim. Lil Kim did even worse. I mean,
Yeah.
she looked like a ghoul now. Jesus.
And she was beautiful before she got all crazy, right?
Beautiful.
Before she went to that
Yes.
crazy,
Beautiful.
because she started off small. Like I think she had some little tweaks, and then she just started looking like some type of Play-Doh doll or something.
Yeah,
Just
she was
crazy.
gorgeous. I don't know why
Yeah.
she did that to herself.
I don't know if you guys saw my video on. I did a video. I can't remember the name of it, but it featured Serena Williams, and she had went to some fashion show in Europe. But I mean, if you guys know, I grew up with her for the most part, right? The girl's from Compton, and she's a dark skinned girl. But if you look at that video, right, if you go to the channel
Yeah.
and find that video, she's actually on the thumbnail, so it's easy to find. You would see that the makeup that she's put on her face is like 15 shades lighter than her own skin. Now think about on the reverse side of that. You tell me anybody from European descent, Asian descent, who's trying to find makeup that looks like Serena Williams naturally. Or tell me, once again, because I say there's no black community, these are all, this is basically supporting that. Tell me where a non-black person is going to buy a wig that looks like an afro or short cropped hair because they think that the black aesthetic is just beautiful. Where is that? Have you seen that happen
Not
anywhere?
since the 70s. Not since the 70s. In the 70s, yeah, you would see people with tight curls or afros, but after that, no, no.
Yeah.
There's
But
a distinction between black and white now.
okay. All right, perfect. Now, another question I have is around our romantic relationships. I think we kind of talked about it. We hit on it earlier in the conversation, but the way that black men and black women interact with each other. Like, is there? I mean, is that a disaster, or is there some hope there? That's my question.
I
I mean,
mean, you
no, go ahead, go ahead.
you kind of see it with now, for example, black guys are getting their passports and leaving. I mean, I think the genie's already out of the bottle. You know, if you as a black man can date out, you date out. If you as a white woman can date out, or not white woman, a black woman, you date out.
Yeah,
I feel like we're all just kind of scattering to the winds. The people that can leave do, and the people that can't stay and they intermingle. You know, even if they don't necessarily like one another, it's kind of like, well, you're here, you're my only choice,
yeah.
kind of thing.
Let's see, Don.
So I don't know if this statement works for what I'm thinking, but I remember it being said, "Familiarity breeds content." Is that I believe
That's it.
that's a statement.
Yeah,
That's something I
yeah,
heard. You
that's the
know,
statement.
That is it.
and to that statement, it's kind of like I don't know. I feel like that's kind of where we are in the dynamics of the black man, the black woman. You know, it's just like that level of this contempt, kind of between the both of us. You know, and then you can kind of see it sometimes even in the people who choose to divest and do things of that nature, which is fine, but it's one of them things where it's like, all right, we hold standards for each other, right? Like they'd be like, okay, I want you to look this way, I want you to do this thing. Like, all right, the woman would be like, oh, you need to make money, you got to be had this car, you got to have this. But then that black woman will leave, go to the white community, and the white dude got a Corolla, he doesn't work, but she's with him and she happy. But then you get the black dudes like, oh, you need to be a dime, yo, sure you gotta look good. And you
Yeah.
get with this
You
white
got to be
woman and
super
she like,
Negro.
right. She's the white girl looking like a whole van, and he's hugging up on her. Like, but it's like, but the standard is like you completely just get blown out the water. But because it's something different, it don't matter that this person might be less than what you can even get in your own community. It's something different than what you see every day. So I just don't know if that statement, that whole contempt kind of thing, how much that plays a factor, and just kind of just even just dating out. But even outside of dating out, I mean, it's just so many. I mean, I hate going back to social media and things, but there's just so much toxicity
Yeah,
is being pushed out and perpetuated to like the new generation of youth, and they just kind of growing up with it, and it's starting to be built in, like the level of resentment and bitterness that wouldn't come until you were like 30 and 40s. And I mean, this seemed like it's starting to creep down to the 20s. It's
yeah,
like, whoa, slow down, youngin, like learn something.
Yeah.
Like they just absorbing that hatred and bitterness and all that baggage. It's just like you ain't live nothing yet. These chicks, I'm tired of these dudes out here. You 21, shut up. Like, what do you mean?
yeah.
What do you mean? How many dudes you been with? Like, what's going on? Like, man, it's just like, yo, it's like they just living out. It's just like this echoing trauma back and forth to each other, and they just rocking with it. It's like, that's crazy. Like, no one wants to just live their life anymore. But I don't know, that just crossed my mind. I don't know, man. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
there's obviously some way that it could be worked out. I mean, from my videos, I was looking at the whole soft guy era. I did a couple of videos and stuff about that, and basically, I think one of my commenters said something. I can't remember what it was, but I think the dad just told her like, "Hey, it really just comes down to this being reciprocal. It all comes down to this reciprocal, admiration,
You,
respect.
you know you
And
can't
that's what
have
it
that
comes
these
down to."
days.
I know, right? I mean, but that's what it
You know
comes
you
down to.
can't.
It's like, I mean, that's that. I mean, that's the. I mean, it's funny because the answer is always, in theory, simple, but it's just the execution that's the problem. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all people are asking for. Even when you look at this soft guy era, it's just like, dude, we just want this to be reciprocated. Like, you want the world, and you giving me nothing. You know what I mean? So it's just like, hey, so now I'm asking for nothing in a parody satirical way, and you're going crazy just because I'm like, the dudes don't even mean it per se, but it's just like they don't like that mirror
Yeah.
being reflected back. There's like everything you're asking for is ridiculous. You're being
Yeah.
ridiculous at this point, and it's just like, well, oh man, you see the pushback videos. These women are mad. They big mad. Like, that is crazy. Why are you so mad? Like, like y'all, like I seen all these guys talking. They just literally mocking the video they saw. like this is females said all this stuff, and y'all just say, "Go girl, you got it.
Go
Yeah, you
girl.
go get your bag." I mean, that's what they got all this one. This dude saying it jokingly, and it's like, "Oh, they hate him. They hate him." I'm like, that's crazy, but
Yeah.
it's all about this. It's reciprocation. I mean, if you want love, give love. I mean,
Yeah.
if a person ain't giving you love the way you want to be loved, then find somebody who does. It's like, I mean, let's not. I don't know. That's my thoughts, but I jump off. I jump off. I get on my box.
Nah, you good. Qatar, you
But
have anything?
and adding to that, right? I've said this. I remember I watched this one YouTube video where this guy was talking about like dating abroad, and he was talking about like as a black dude, it's gonna be harder because you're gonna be niche. Like, let's face it, if you're a white dude and you go outside the US, you're gonna have easier time dating. If you're a black dude, like 9 out of 10, it's gonna be like niche. They're either really into black culture, really into black dudes, and that's what you're gonna get. But going back to that, dating within our own race seems just as hard as dating out. Like, you got to be super Negro. You got to be,
Yeah.
6'4". You got to be a doctor, but you also got to be a thug. You got to have tattoos. You gotta know how to fix things. You got to be ready to, shoot another nigga over something small. You know what I mean? You're supposed to do all these things that don't even mesh. They don't go together.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I know somewhere, like I said, black women, they'll probably roast you. They'll probably be like, oh, this guy, he's just weak. He can't get a woman. It's like, look, other black dudes out there, you've dealt with this too,
Yeah.
where you try to talk to a woman and she thinks you're a scrub. She thinks you're the dirt under her toenails before you even say anything. And it's like, this woman will expect you to work out and have a six pack when the only thing that looks like she lifts is a hamburger. You know what I mean? Like, make that make sense. You can have standards in it. Like for example, the stereotype of a black dude, right?
Yeah.
And you even see it around here. You'll see a black dude that's in shape, that looks good, with a woman that's just, I'm not saying, I'm not saying larger people don't deserve love. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, we know that that's a self-esteem thing. We know,
Yeah.
because you've been alone for a long time. This is the only person I have, and you just say, okay, I'll cash in with this. But we have that stereotype because so many of us do it. But
Yeah.
for example, me, when I say, well, I prefer a woman that is under my weight. I'm like, I weigh 160 at 6 feet. If you're five foot nothing, you shouldn't be 200 pounds, right? I'm the asshole. You
Yeah.
can't say that.
Yeah.
You can't say that, and I also prefer you wear your own hair. Oh, hell no, you're not. Nope.
Yeah. Now, Rose of Sharon had a comment early on, and I guess that it was said. What was it at? What's the topic? So, Rose of Sharon Cassie, the topic is, the argument is that there is no black community, or at least that's my position. But it sounds like the conversation that we have had or been having, these two gentlemen, Don and Qataris, both agree that there really is no existence of a black community where there's cohesion and support and understanding amongst each other. So, yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Make sure you like the
That.
video, please. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel.
I know them. They're tuning in from Korea.
Oh, are they?
That person's Korean.
안녕하세요.
Yeah, 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. 감사합니다. Yeah. Well, I got another video. It's like I said, we're going to continue on this line from this Bohemian gal. She does good work, and this one is centered around well, I think it's the over sexualization or the way that we treat each other. So take a listen to this one.
Let's talk about our treatment of women, how we treat our women. I am a firm believer that a man is supposed to love and respect a woman, but I see that there are so many black men who just don't know how to do that. They are very disrespectful towards women. I've never seen an Asian man calling his girlfriend or his child's mother or his wife the B word. I've never seen it. A lot of our men will disrespect our women and hurt them emotionally or physically sometimes both. And they see nothing wrong with it. And it's not condemned in the community. A lot of times if a woman is beaten, people say she deserved to get beaten. She looked for that because she did XYZ, or she's annoying or whatever. It's incredibly sad because I look at these women and you can tell that they just don't even know what love is. They don't know how love is supposed to feel or how someone is supposed to act when they love them. Blacks are the most likely to experience domestic violence, either male to female or female to male.
System malfunction.
Wow, that's a heavy stat. And it's
Oh, flag on the plate there. Flag on the plate there. Hold up.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's an accountability thing. And these women are choosing these type of men. You have because I've talked to other people of other ethnicities because they say the same thing. Men are bad. You have more good men than you have good women. And I will die on that hill. You can come at me for that. I don't care.
yeah,
If in America, especially even within the black community, if most of us were bad, you'd be getting raped and beaten in the streets constantly.
yeah,
You know, like that is an accountability thing. Women these days will be the first to tell you, we fuck who we want to fuck. You fuck who you can,
yeah,
right? They'll straight up let you know.
yeah,
And it's like, okay, if by that metric, you know, you're choosing these guys, these bad boys, these exciting guys, these people that give you the tingles, and then you're upset when they, you know, they beat you up, they take your money, you know, they get you pregnant, they leave. It's like, and those are the vocal minority. Those aren't the majority of black men aren't going around doing this.
yeah.
That's all I gotta say, man. And
Okay, Don.
Man, it's funny. I mean, a side topic, but it's on topic, kind of off a little bit. But I was in my car the other day. I put on an album I used to listen to back in the early 2000s. It was 112, Part 3 was the album. There was a song called Sweet Love, right? And I'm listening to it, I'm vibing out like, oh man, that was the R&B was kicking back then, man. And I'm just listening to, I'm just like, man, there was a time we used to love these women, man. We used to love this vibe, man. We wanted to give them the world. We wanted to grab. We wanted to be lovey dovey.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm sitting here this reminiscing. I'm like, man, I'm tired of these dudes calling these chicks hoes and bitches all day, man. Why can we go back to loving these women again? Like,
yeah,
can we get that vibe? But then I think about it. And I'm like, man, it's like they won't allow us to love them. Like they won't allow us to love them anymore. It's like, and it sucks because being kind of an old school kind of dude. I grew up listening to the Boys and Men and the 112s. It's like, I mean,
yeah.
let's get jagged in, let's get married. I mean,
Let's
like
get
I love it.
married. Yeah, that
Exactly.
was the
Like I'm
good
here
stuff.
for all that.
Yeah,
I was here for all that. And I mean, it's just like, man, but those women were way more receptive to that kind of love to wanted to do that, And now, like the
now it's
dudes that try
corny.
to
It's corny.
listen,
Laying down what's
the
hot.
dudes that try to embrace that now, are the simps. They get
Yeah,
put
man,
straight to
nigga,
the
you
simp
soft.
basement.
Nigga, you
Yeah, you
soft.
soft as hell. You a soft ass simp, bro. And it's just like fair enough because it's like in the way you are because you're not adapting to the environment that you're in. It's just like so. I mean, as much as I understand, as much as I want, I wish it was a society where you could just love the women the way that you used to love, the way you used to vibe. But that means that you're not evolving with society because that's not where we are today.
yeah,
Hence why now you get the simp title. Where back in the day you would have been the man. So it's
yeah.
all about the growth with it. So I mean, it goes off of the comments on topic, but yeah, that's kind of what I pull. But yeah, I don't know necessarily, about just. I mean, don't get me wrong. Domestic violence and stuff, 100%. That definitely happens. I mean, like especially depending on some hoods you go into, man. The men and women, they throwing blows. They throwing
Yeah.
straight up real blows. Like it can get chaotic. And but no one thing I think about, in America, women are still more protected than the men. Honestly, when it comes down to he say, she say wins. I would say the majority of the time. I don't got a exact number, but I would say definitely the majority of the time. So I mean, so not to say that that's not there, but it's like I don't know. I don't know if it's going crazy. I mean, I know very back in the day, but I don't know. If y'all telling me y'all think it's still like that heavy modern day as it was back in the day. I know back in the day it was a little more crazier, but I don't know if it's still that heavy now. But maybe it's just depending on what part of the country and stuff you're in. I don't know.
What do you think, Cathars?
Yep.
Wait a
You
second, though.
know,
We got shout out to Whitley. She jumped
there we
back
go.
in here. Yeah, Whitley's back in here. She had a lot to say on the last live. Whitley, Thank you for joining this live. It's good to have you. Good to see your nice avatar. Appreciate that. But yeah, to Don's point, you have anything to add on that, Guitaris?
Oh, so I was gonna read a comment that Whitley wrote. She said, did the language change when the music was dictated and pushed out by labels? Part of it was talked about before, the media causing division purposely. I agree with that. Because like I said,
Mm-hmm.
around the 80s and 90s is when you really started to see that shift in like a black man projecting romantic soft love to a woman changed to come here bitch I want to fuck. You know what I
100%.
mean? Like
Yeah.
like you saw it. I mean, you got to think it's kind of started with, because let's say NWA was one of the first to like really, really, really say hardcore things, and then after that, it just evolved, and bitches and hoes, and I mean, then even Tupac, when Tupac first started, he was kind
Yo.
of like a soft dude, and you even see later on, he's like,
Yeah.
now you gotta shake that ass and break that ass, like
Yeah, yeah, because I think he had a conversation or he liked some girl back when he was in high school. Yeah, but to your
hmm
to your point, he was like an art. He did ballet. The guy was very
Right.
yeah,
artistic, but
Yeah.
he had a conversation with some girl that he liked in high school, and she told him like he was trying to get at her or whatever, and she told him that he was too nice, and he's like,
yeah,
he goes, I couldn't believe it. She said I was too nice. And so you see the transformation of guys just being straight dicks. And that seems to
and
attract women versus the guy who is on his square, keeping his head down and trying to get further in life. They
yeah,
want the
you
bad
have
dude.
you have two types of men. You have the ones that started out that way and the ones that became that way, like that the women of that community created.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And then you see the women, right? I'm gonna play this next video by this Bohemian gal uh, that kind of talks about the over sexualization of women, like the way our mothers dressed and carried themselves looks nothing like the stuff that we see today.
I want to talk about the over sexualization of Black women in our community. I don't know the genesis of it. I don't know where it started, but it's extremely rampant in the Black community. I'm not going to blame everything on hip hop because I feel like a lot of it predates hip hop. But what I do know is that when we see some of our favorite performers on screen, on TV, or on an award show performing very lasciviously, dressed lasciviously, performing lewdly, that it does have an impact on our young girls. It does have an impact on our women. I feel like it opens people's minds up and lets them know it's okay to do these things. It's okay to be free with your body. It's okay to be liberal and liberalized. There are some Black women who think it is cute, and they say it with pride, to call themselves a B word or to call themselves hoe. Then you have women like Corinne Steffens saying this.
And now you have a problem. Because now you have a wife who you're married to, obviously, and then there's children, then there's a house, and there's 50-50, and then there's a divorce court. And now you're losing everything you built, all because you didn't marry the kind of woman you should have married in the first place, which is a woman that's gonna knock your socks off every day when you come home from work. Marry the slut.
Or you have Amber Rose proudly boasting of her campaign, which is dubbed the Slut Walk. For many women, still an incredibly hurtful thing. It's an embarrassing thing to be dubbed a slut. But for some women, they say, I'm going to take back my power and own it. I don't see power in that. What are you owning?
System malfunction.
Sorry.
Right? what are you owning in that? Could you imagine,
Right.
Qatari's, your mother or like your grandmother, your aunties, back when you were growing up, telling you go marry the slut? Could you imagine that?
Yeah. No Black mom, at least from that time period, would say that. Even and I hate to say it, even if back when they were young, they were the same way. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And it's the same thing. Like if you have a mom that's a single mom, she'll tell you don't marry a single mom.
yeah,
Because they know the score. Uh, it's one of those things that they're benefiting from the over sexualization. There, because in this world now, it's not so much about money; it's about attention. We live in an attention based economy,
yeah,
and the same things that influences women of other ethnicities, they're going to influence women of our ethnicity. And so they're going to say, "Ooh, I can get all this affirmation and attention if I just shake my ass."
Yeah.
I mean, it's so catchy that you even got Asian and white girls doing it.
Yeah. Craziest
How do
thing.
you combat that?
Yeah. So Rose of Sharon Cassidy basically has a comment. If I was summarize it, he's like, thug culture, like as well as this over sexualized culture, basically, is becoming like mainstream, and he doesn't understand why it's becoming mainstream, especially if it's. And so I would imagine, I'm going to make an assumption here, Rose of Sharon Cassidy, is that because it's such foul display of art and a way that one should carry themselves, it should not become mainstream. So, and I think that's to your point as well, Qataris. But let me see here.
Yeah, toxic is mainstream, or toxic is
100%.
palatable to people, like destruction. And I mean, for example, when people watch the people that tend to watch reality shows, they're not
Mm,
watching reality shows of people just doing regular everyday shit. They're watching people fighting,
Yeah,
people screwing each other as man or woman, turmoil and chaos. Like chaos is addicting.
yeah,
Destruction, the tearing down is addicting. That's one of the reasons why like gangster rap became so popular. And to go back what you said about people like certain things about black culture could care less about, black people. I've met people that listen to hip hop and don't like black people at all.
for
You know what
sure.
I mean? Like they
Yeah,
like that genre and they're just like,
yeah,
I'd rather listen to Post Malone. Fuck these niggas. You know what I mean? I've seen it. And
yeah,
if you look at media now, all right, the trick now is they're replacing us in hip hop. If you look at new
yeah,
artists coming up, they're replacing us, and now you're starting to see a lot of the remaining black hip hop people are homosexuals. And I have nothing wrong with being homosexual, but it's like an image thing. Even if you look at movies, you look at like recent movies, the black character, if it's a woman, they're always overweight. They're never like attractive. Same thing, if it's a black guy, he might be gay or overweight, like effeminate. Like they never give us.
Pendeja. Mi teléfono.
oh, okay.
No, they
God,
never,
man.
they never, they never give us, that proper like. And these are progressive people. These are people that are saying, "Oh, we see you and want you to feel heard," but then they throw out a caricature of a black person. You're like, "Oh yeah, we're representing you." Are you
yeah,
though?
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah. On one hand, it's sort of like, how do you say it? Like the best comment someone can give you is to sort of copy or duplicate what you do. But yeah, I get your point. I get your point.
I
Don?
mean, if you look at, oh,
No,
sorry
no,
to
go ahead and
interrupt, but
finish. No,
No,
Tyrese, go
go,
ahead
go
and
for it.
finish.
if you look at things that black people have created within America, whole music genres like rock and roll, like that was us. We
Yeah,
started it. Jimi Hendrix was like the pinnacle of that, like the magnum opus of that. I mean, he could play the guitar in no way people could. And a lot of people copied him and made modern rock music what it is. Then we got replaced. You're starting to see that with hip hop. Slowly but surely, there's gonna be less and less people with dark skin doing it, and then you'll have more posts. And again, no shade to the white dudes that like hip hop that do hip hop artwork. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it comes in phases, and then we'll have to create something new. Hopefully, and I'm hoping when that happens, we get a new identity. We go from hell, we go back to soul music or something. Like that would be cool because that was during the time period we weren't like how we are today.
yeah.
Right.
So with all that the black people have given to the world, from rock and roll to jazz, right, blues, the rap music, how is it that there is no black community? Like with all of that richness, why is it? Black people would call it their own, right? They say that's our music. We did this, but with all of that you've given, how is it that we haven't commercialized or capitalized on that for ourselves? Why is there no
I
black
think
community?
I think it's a lack of integration. If you look at the 70s, right? At one point, there was no, like, yes, you had black produced music, but like, as far as dressing, for example, everybody wore bell bottoms. Everybody wore the platform shoes.
Yeah.
Everybody, went to the disco to dance.
With the fish at the
Everybody
bottom.
kind of,
With the
yeah,
fish.
everybody had afros. You know what I mean? Even white people. So it was and as far as communes, joining communes, you had black people doing that, joining cults back then. Jim Jones, things like
Yeah.
that. There were tons of black people there. I mean, that was a bad thing, but you get my point. Like, at some point we became separate from each other, and I think that was kind of self-inflicted. Like, part of it was engineered, but then we kind of just ran with it.
Yeah.
It's like we're separate, we're other than. And if you look at other races that come in America, they tend to stick to themselves, but then they slowly integrate into the whole. And that's something that we haven't quite figured out how to do as a collective.
Yeah. I think Whitley is in lockstep with you. She says all of American culture that goes international is mostly from people of color origins. Like you can see it in South Korea right now, right? I mean, K-pop. I mean, I've always looked at the Korean culture as very like demure and like what do you call it? Like modest and humble. Man, they're out there popping it, and I mean, they're doing good. Like the music
Yeah.
is good. They got rap. They got Koreans who are rapping, Korean girls who are rapping, and they're doing it just as good as the black folks do it. I mean,
And and the way they do their style, their hip hop style is more in trend with like the early 1980s, before the sagging pants, but when you just dressed fresh, your clothes were fitted, you dressed fresh, and you know you were about that hip hop style, but it wasn't like prison hip hop style. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I got you.
Right.
I got
Right.
you. Well, cool. I think we're coming up on the witching hour, and I just wanted to thank you guys. Unless you had more to say, Don, we do got some folks in the chat. I think you've Whitley was here last time. Rose of Sharon Cassidy is new. Appreciate the collaboration. Maybe Don, you want to kind of lift up your channel, let them know where they can find you. And
Definitely, definitely. But let me throw one note in. One note. It crossed my mind as we were all talking. Just kind of thinking of this the overall, there being no black community, or at least the black aspect. One of the things that kind of just popped in my head, kind of helped me flush it out. But it reminds me of this picture I saw years ago. There was a picture of this African American male, young kind of cat, and he had chains. He had a chain on his neck. He had a chains on his wrists.
yeah.
So he's shackled, but he's dipping his paintbrush in gold paint, and he's painting his chains. And it's like it was such a unique message, and it kind of makes me think like, man, like it seemed like our culture has been cultivated or been kind of led in a direction to appreciate shiny negativity over positivity.
Yeah,
Like we'd rather have shiny negativity than actual positivity,
for sure.
And when you look at it that way, I mean, this from everything. This is my man painting this. He's shackled,
Yeah,
but as long as his shackles are gold, he's good.
yeah.
And it's like, huh? And they even this like you look
Mm.
at it like, oh man, it's just like, oh my man, wait. It's like, oh, they call us niggas and they drug us and they hung us, and it's like, oh, but we embrace it. We niggas. That's what we are. We gonna embrace it. It's another shiny negativity. But surely it's like, oh, I'm a bad bitch. I'm a hoe. All this, da 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 da. That's a more shiny negativity. It's just
Wow.
like, oh, anything, long as it's shiny, they go for it. Anything over positivity. And I feel like anything that's really portrayed to our community, that's kind of, if you look at it in the sense of this being shiny negativity, that's just always the magnet. But what drove our appetites to all want that? Because it all comes down to appetites, right? So what drove our community to want that shiny negativity over the positivity?
Wow.
Like I did a
That's
video.
powerful. That's powerful, man.
Oh, thank you. I just came off the
good.
dome.
That's a good depiction right there. That's a real good depiction.
Yeah, if I
Mind
find the
blown.
picture, I'll link it. I'll link it for
Yeah.
sure. It just reminded me, like, this one video I did was called "Sexy." It was like modest versus sexy, you know. And it was just looking at just these two different women. You know, there's one woman, she's being modest, and she's talking about the Megan Thee Stallion challenge, and does she hate how when black women come together, it's always just to be naked and shake their asses, never to kind of do something to uplift black women as a whole. It's just more over sexualization, you know. When this other woman, she came to was kind of pushing back, and her thing was like, oh, it's always these modest women that have something negative to say, and these modest women, she said they always modest, and they wear clothes, and they wear perfume, and they act fancy, and they don't wear wigs. And I'm saying these are her negative points. These were her negative points against this modest women, and her perception of modest women. What did I say negative in that whole statement is beyond me. You know, but in her mind, it's just like that was all shade. It's just
crazy.
like, wow.
Yeah. That's how
Shows
she
the
internalizes it.
toxicity.
Yeah.
100%. Exactly how she internalizes it. And it's such an interesting way. Like, what shifted the appetite? I mean, again, it's easy just to say, oh, social media did it and things of that nature, but I mean, I would say social media definitely was a catalyst. You know, the social media entertainment has definitely been a massive catalyst to get us to this point for sure, at least in my opinion. But yeah, that crossed my mind. I just wanted to share it. I mean, so I just wanted to see if it made sense.
Yeah.
Well,
Guitars?
I mean, if you look at, who black people are shown to represent them, it's the rappers and the athletes. You know,
Yeah.
you have guys that are scientists, and so you never hear about them. You never hear about, or even people that do business that you never hear about. They never cause any trouble. You're not really shown that. And we as humans, we aren't as evolved as we think. We ape what we see. You see somebody else doing something that seems to work, you want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And like, even when it comes to being beautiful versus sexy, I've had to explain this to multiple women of multiple ethnicities. Is, being sexy is like temporary. That's a temporary state of being. Being beautiful is the long haul. That's like when you get old, you don't look as good anymore. Like, I'm pretty sure you guys have encountered beautiful people where, like, you sit down, they're a joy to talk
Yeah.
to, like they have their mind and their outlook makes them more attractive. Whereas you can sit down and talk to a sexy person, and the moment they open their mouth, you don't even want to talk to them no more. You don't even want to look at them. It's like, oh man, you
So
completely
true.
ruined
Yeah.
the image of you just by opening your mouth. And we like fast and quick. Everything is like fast food. I told you before, you got to be faster than the speed of stupid, and stupid is the light speed. It is light speed, man.
Yeah.
And those type of ideas are going to spread far fast. And it doesn't really matter what your ethnicity is now, because I mean, you're even starting to see it in other communities. Like, other communities starting to fold, especially as our economy gets worse. People are going to gravitate towards that negativity. And like, going back to what Don said before about, like, the feminism movement and how it impacts black women, and like I said, they're the useful idiots. Like, they'll hear, oh, racism, and then they'll be standing arm in arm with these people. These people don't care about you. They're
For
like,
sure.
to quote what Whitley said earlier, is like that individualism is infested everyone. That whole rugged individualism that we have as Americans, and we
Yeah.
haven't figured out our foundation yet. And
Yeah.
so we have no structure
Well,
because of that.
according to what the way people understand the machine is that in order for the machine to work properly, they have to divide and conquer. So
Exactly.
and you see, especially with this like new age with social media, we've gotten more separated as people. Like, I mean, you can go out to Starbucks. I make my daily run early morning to get my double espresso, and everyone's in their phone. No one even says hello to each other. Don't even see you coming in. There's no sense of, like, I recognize you. They're too busy looking at whatever it is on that screen. So the division has gotten deeper. It is
You
the
know,
fissures. Sorry, go ahead.
the I was talking to my friend recently about this. I call it sleepwalker syndrome. And this is why I make it a point to look at people's eyes when I talk to them, when I first encounter them, regardless of how they look, what ethnicity they are. There's a certain look that people have these days. When you look into their eyes, there's nothing there. It's
There's
it's
nothing there.
it's
Yeah,
fucking scary. When you
yeah,
really look at them, doesn't matter what color they are, you can tell that there is nothing going on behind their eyes.
yeah.
They're
Zombies.
sleepwalking.
Oh, it's crazy,
And
man.
and to like just yesterday, I do my early morning like run, and somebody pulled up next to me and started shouting something to me. So I like ducked around the corner. There was a security guard that saw me, right? So like I'm ducking, dodging this car. I don't know who this person is. The security guard gets out of their car and he's kind of giving me this look. And he's like, "You have to leave." And I'm like, "These people are following me and I don't know who they are." And he had the sleepwalker eyes. He's like, "You gotta leave." I'm not homeless. Do you see that these people are following me? Like, I need your help. He's like, you gotta leave. And he had sleepwalker eyes. And it
Wow.
feels like people can only do what they're programmed to do now. And
Yeah,
if you deviate from that programming, it just doesn't register with them.
I get you. Yeah, awesome. And I think it's been a good conversation, man. If you guys don't have anything else to add, I kind of want to leave you with a video, the last video. It's only seconds long from this Bohemian gal. And then we're going to go ahead and end the stream. But again, I appreciate everybody. Thank you all for your collaboration. It's always good seeing you too. You guys always bring some profound statements and additions to the show. So here's we're gonna let this Bohemian gal send this out. So I appreciate you all.
It's time for us to stop being a safe haven for bad behavior. Just log off.
I'm trying to take it as high as it go. I've been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth. They tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete, 2 rows.